Well, hello again. It is I. Not that one. Broderick Wallace. And oh, technology. This is actually the picture that when I said that I was stopped by the police, this is actually the picture that I was talking about. For some reason, when you make these videos, or when I make these videos, these podcasts, right, I'm going to try and sum this up as quickly as possible. So, in order to add music, I have to compress the file because the app that I use to record it with, the phone doesn't recognize it properly, but it still can kind of work with it to a point. But it won't let me edit it, so I can't add the music. So in order to add the music, I use this compressor, which kind of re-renders the video. And the longer the video goes on, all the pictures go out of sync. So it's just like it's like whoa. I never would have guessed. I'm so surprised that it would go wrong. Like, I've never encountered this before. So just to let you know, all the images were out of sync on the last video. So it didn't seem to happen on a 20-minute video, but a 40-minute it did. Anyway, while I'm talking, let's find something else. So hopefully this will all stay in sync. There I was yesterday, just about to make lunch in the evening, or dinner, or whatever, and I regretted it because it ruined my meditation. I'm learning more and more. Just don't eat after 3:30 in the afternoon, or it will have an effect on your evening meditation. You need to be empty. If the body is processing food, there is less energy for the mind, the brain, whatever, right? So anyway, I was sitting there thinking, when I make these videos, like if we move to the impetus, you get this build up of ideas. And if you think that the channel, all these podcasts, they're like we're gradually painting a picture, mostly in words, but also in images. So you get this build up, like, I want to add that, and you don't quite know where the channel's going to go, because obviously from the beginning the impetus was to tell the story concerning Bluebell Hill and to document that ongoing, and then things changed in ways that I could never have imagined. So who knows how things will progress as we go forward. But you want to lay this down, so you do lay it down, you make this podcast, and you feel really good about it, because like it might have taken a few goes like it did for the last couple of videos, but in the past, and usually I lay them down, it's quite easy for me, but there was something I particularly wanted to get down and convey in a particular way that was structured. So I achieved that. So you get this kind of like, oh, great. Then you find out all the images are out of sync. It's like, oh, well, just leave it now. Just leave it. I've only got so much time and energy for this, you know. I'm not doing it again. And then what happens is the next day you feel like you've sort of bared a portion of yourself. You know, you've I don't know, it's almost like you've given something of yourself out into the world, and it's permanent. And luckily I'm starting to realize how this works, and I always make sure that I never go into particular areas. Thankfully I never have, but there are things buried deep in the channel that I would never say again. But I'm proud of the evolution. I'm proud of that. So I'll stand by it. But you see, I'm starting to learn now. Like this is related to the Hermetic practice. Like you should be careful about what you expose to a certain degree. But at the same time, people need to speak up. And as I've said before, Franz Bardon himself spoke up. I mean, he wrote specifically 3 books, right? So if no one ever speaks up, talks about their experiences, if no one's sharing this stuff, I mean, what is it? Just like all these little private cells, these practitioners all so afraid to open up about anything that they become. These words are coming to me from a particular place, a block in the tradition. And the place that these words come from, I will say that an exception has been made. But without talking about the practice directly. And I have my own unique challenge here as well. Because I'm going to take it so far. But I understand through the process of laying a portion of yourself bare, you go through this process where you feel great about it, and then you feel awful about it the next day. But you think, oh, whatever, at least I've done it. I mean, I've done something, right? And then after that, you feel, oh, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I did that. It's like the initial act of exposure is painful. And it takes a little while to settle. As long as you haven't crossed certain lines, it all works out in the end. It's all good. And I'm presenting myself as someone who is on the path, who is in the act of, you might say my block is being reshaped, which, you know, the rough stone, all that kind of stuff, very Masonic. Where are we? It brings me to this image that we'll get back to. But yeah, you see, when you take the risk of making a statement, it does have that effect for a little while. But as time moves on, you realise that it's better to have contributed, as long as that contribution was, as long as it evolves, as long as it comes from a place of truth and genuineness, and as long as it's not done for entertainment. If it's done for the right reasons, and there's lines that you don't cross, and I'm working out, I'm navigating this all the time. I believe that I'm getting better at this. So what is this? What would you call it? The epilogue to spiritual exodus. What is this all about? Well, I'm kind of making it up as I go along, but there's still something, not necessarily a conclusion, but I'm going to go back to that band, Samael, again, actually, for a moment, and say, this album, 1999, Eternal. Look at the cover. What does that conjure up? I mean, that conjures up to me the Kabbalistic cross. Atah, Malkuth, Ve'Gebura, Ve'Gedula, Le Olam, Amen. What does that remind me of? This cube of space. And I was looking at a picture of, where are we? Hopefully this will all be in sync. Hermes Trismegistus. I was thinking, how is he dressed? Like, where does this, I mean, when do you ever actually research, like, when was this picture created and by who? Who, whatever. Whom. Well, I'm going to start doing that. And this is a direct reaction to what I did complain about and what I have highlighted. The incessant sharing of images as a replacement for actual process. A presentation of stuff you never created in order that you associate yourself with this path, with this practice. And it's all displacement activity, right? So We don't want any of that. So I'm going to make a point out of finding out where some of these images came from, these popular images. And anyway, I was thinking, where is the source for the outfit here? So I asked a few friends. Someone said, oh, maybe Persian, Magi, bit of Islamic. I was thinking, it always reminded me, it looks a bit Jewish. And then I thought, well, it could be Catholic because of the time period, but the toga is kind of Greek. What about Greek Orthodox? What about Coptic Egyptian? They look a little bit like that. And then it doesn't really look particularly Eastern. It kind of looks more European, but the nose is definitely Eastern. It's a hybrid, isn't it? It's universal. It's kind of cool like that. Probably not intended, but it just came out to cover all bases like that. So I like the what do you call it? Can't think of the right word. It's not an astrolabe. It's something different. Gyroscope or something. Whatever it's called. This. You can see the zodiac there wrapped around the celestial sphere. I feel like it should have another sphere within the Earth, to be honest. But hey, it's a nice piece of art. Anyway, moving over to the other side. What's that? The sun, the moon. It relates to the emerald tablet, and we have this kind of pulsating and enveloping energy force between the two opposites that also extends around. So we could liken this to the sun as fire, the moon as water, and the air, the interaction between, and the whole as earth. So that's wonderful. And at first glance, when we see the sun and the moon, we think electromagnetic. And anyone who's been keeping up with the practice long enough should have had an experience of electromagnetism. I'll leave it there. So, what's missing? The fifth element, the Akasha. Don't worry, I don't have any pictures of, from the movie Fifth Element. Don't worry. I wouldn't do that to you. Anyway, so that sort of, it brought me to the Kabbalistic cross that I saw in this album cover. And that made me think of the cube of space in this Egyptian statue. And then I thought, oh, I saw Samael live, and I jumped up on the stage. This was on the tour for Reign of Light, a UK show. I don't know if it might have been a couple of nights, but I can't remember now. But I was there, London, Reign of Light tour. Jumped up on stage, put my arm around Vorth, and sang into the mic the first verse for the song The Cross. And it was quite a beautiful moment, actually, and I've just highlighted not the whole of the first verse, but I've just chosen just 6 lines here, and I just feel compelled to read these lines out. The wind of spring blows in heaven, in the land of gold, in the land of God. Manipulate the holiness, maculate the loneliness, shining between 2 worlds, learning to win and hold. Now, life can be beautiful, can't it? It can be sweet sometimes. The path is difficult, all of this discipline and practice and chastising oneself. I could have done better. But life can be sweet, life can be beautiful. Sometimes we catch a scent, just a feeling, an experience, an interaction on the edge of the mind of that eternal bliss, of that sense of love and presence, empty in its fullness. So, talking about, the Yamabushi in the mountains, and, me knocking about in the woods, and the stars, and, leaving tyranny, and all of that, I guess you might say, we brought it into this idea of balance, like we need to have a foot in both worlds, to have one foot in the grave, to be half dead, but not necessarily always in the negative sense. That also contains its own duality. So if we took this idea of kind of red and blue, of positive and negative, the electric and the magnetic, and we just thought for a moment, even within the extremes, there is a balance to be struck. There is a positive and negative aspect of fire. There is a positive and negative aspect of water. And by extension, when we find the mediation point of air, even this is a mediation per se. There is still a mediation to be found in each stage. There is a mediation to be found in earth. Now, holding this image in the mind, the Kabbalistic cross, the elements, and we ask ourselves, why is it called the fifth element? It's because calling it element 0 sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? That infinite nothingness from which everything springs. The wind of spring blows in heaven. Let's go back to those lyrics. In the land of gold, in the land of God, manipulate the holiness, maculate the loneliness, shining between two worlds, learning to win and hold. The teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, consolidated into a practical training regime by Franz Bardon. And I will tell you, perfected in a universal sense, and embellished and honed. I've already said the word perfected, but there's something else that I'm looking for. Made accessible and personable by Mr. Fawkes, if I dare say so. I hope I'm not transgressing. It's only a compliment. He won't mind, he's used to me. And without saying it, without just trying to sum up, without actually summing up, trying to arrive at this notion of, you may have noticed this theme of headlessness. Orion the hunter, or Osiris, Sahu, Osiris. Think about the image. his consort Isis, not here in the picture because she was either below the actual horizon or behind, I'm pretty sure, not visible at this point when I took this particular photograph. It's all there, but it has to be lived. It has to be lived. And breathed. What is it about Egypt? You can spend, and I have spent, hours and hours and hours and hours obsessed with this mighty civilization, with its faults, of course, you know, but it's like, it's so frustrating that you can't just directly access it, and yet that frustration that it's fragmented, that we have, I mean, thank God the pyramids still stand, but not in their original condition, of course. And even if we talk about origins, it's like, everything is shrouded in mystery. The archaeologists are arrogant in their assertions. They talk like they're certain about things, but they're not certain about anything. This path, this practice, you could say its origins lie in a broken and fractured paganism that's been carried on the electrical magnetic fields of minds into the present day. But that if it exists, then not only has it always existed, but it will always exist, and it lies outside of culture. And that is certainly true. So anything that has been lost, it can be rediscovered, it can be repieced together. And what a wonderful journey it is to embark upon the Golden Path. My name's Broderick Wallace, and thank you for joining me on the epilogue for the Exodus trilogy. Even if it doesn't quite make sense, I like to think that I've just given you something to think about, something to meditate on. And I can assure you that I've chosen my words carefully, very, very carefully, from my humble position as that block, which is, like the man in the square block here, like the image that we're looking at. I'm reaching out with the chisel. I'm doing my best. I'm looking to the past, I'm looking out to the future. I'm seeking balance between opposite poles. Above me, the heavens; below me, the underworld. But within the infinite, inexhaustible nothingness that is so fulfilling. Okay, let's stop. Oh, this is the moving image. Let's go back to the still. If we can find it, give me a moment. That's a good place to start, actually. The idea of the moving image from the past coming into the present briefly, but eternally, and then stretching out into the future as a concept. It's like we never actually get there, do we? It's the eternal now. The past is gone, but is it really? We carry it with us, and we carry a sense of the future with us too. We are fixed in this place. It brings to mind the William Blake eternity within a flower, and we will come to a flower at the end. So this moving image, this is a good image to hold in the mind when we think about the Kabbalistic cross. Atah. We begin up in the heavens. You might say air, down to Malkuth, earth, right shoulder, Vegabura, left shoulder, Vegadula, Vegadula. Bring it to the middle, the stillness, the eternal now. Lay Olam, Amen, unto all ages, Amen, etc., etc. So we have that center point. But we need to somehow understand that in relation to the cube. So we have the 4 elements there and the 5th. And I think it's important to say, I've reversed this image to bring to mind the juxtaposition between subjectivity and objectivity. So as we look from the outside, again, the crook and the flail. The crook being Jupiter, blue, kingship, and this requires balance, but not without the discipline on the other side. The flail, Mars, severity. There has to be a balance within these aspects to create that purple place that I've hinted at. This might sound, I appreciate, just bear with me, artistically speaking. This is, you might think of it as a mandala, if you like. And so, this Kabbalistic cross, how do we relate that to the cube of space? By bringing in the idea of the past and the present and the future, stabilizing at that point within. The past is a tricky thing. We like to think that the past is all said and done, but there is a way of thinking. But I do think that it's true that we can change the past by understanding that the present moment, I was going to say which becomes the future, but the future is already there. The future that we imagine that we're heading towards, it becomes the present moment, so it's there as a concept. So if we look towards the concept of the future and apply ourselves in the present moment, our future will become, or it will be imbued with the magic to transmute our past. In other words, if we can arrive, if we can apply that kingship, that discipline within that center point of balance, our very actions which affect our future, which become the present moment, it changes the way we think about our past. In other words, it changes the way we think about ourselves. And I'm not talking about financial success, or there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but I'm talking about personal evolution here. I'm talking about balancing, centering. It will change the way you feel about yourself because you will see a result concerning the evolution. I hope I've made that point clear. Anyway, I need to somehow get to for some reason it's not allowing. Oh, here we are. Here we are. So, this idea of evolution, you know, speaking from my humble position, you know, from where I am, from what I've learned, from what I can perceive, from what I can imagine. This saying that no mud, no lotus, right? The dirt of the past. The idea of becoming cleaner. That lotus, it can't grow without the mud. So I think that's a good point to resolve. That idea of the 4 elements becoming 5 and then becoming the cube of space, with the prize eternally in the center that has the power through your own transmutation to transmute the whole. And no, actually, I'll save that for the future. It may be a while till I upload again, but I know no one's waiting, so that's cool. And I have things that I need to attend to, so until then,